Yes, Sapna ji.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sapna, Manager Heartcare Foundation of India. I am delighted to welcome all of you our today's special AIDS Day program. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Ms. Asha Prabhakar, Principal Bal Bharati Public School, Noida, Joint Secretary National Progressive Schools Conference. Now I invite Ms. Asha Prabhakar to propose a welcome note.
Good morning, one and all, and I have the much pleasure and on the I extend a welcome to Mr. K.K. Agarwal, who needs no introduction for the Delhi education fraternity and for the medical world, and for, I think he's a global name now. And sir, if I'm not wrong, how many webinars as on day you must have conducted? Basically, every day we see you on a online platform disseminating information, knowledge to the masses. Well, on the occasion of World AIDS Day, which is designated on 1st December every year since 1988, it is an international day dedicated to raising awareness of the AIDS pandemic caused by the spread of HIV infection and mourning those who died of the disease. Government and health officials, non-governmental organizations, and individuals around the world observe this day with education on AIDS prevention and control. World AIDS Day is one of the 11 official global public health campaigns marked by the World Health Organization, along with World Health Day, World Blood Donor Day, World Immunization Week, World Tuberculosis Day, World No Tobacco Day, World No Malaria Day, etc. As of 2017, the data available, AIDS has killed more than 28.9 million. The data is between 28.9 million to 41.5 million people worldwide. And an estimated 36.7 million people are living with HIV, making it one of the most important global public health issues in recorded history. Ladies and gentlemen, the way we are learning to live with Corona, I think we have learned to live with HIV AIDS also. It's time to give the platform to Dr. K.K. Agarwal, who's going to brief us that why this day is important and how we are going to come back again with resilience and safeguard ourselves from this disease. This day is very important, and on the occasion like this, there cannot be a better resource person than Dr. K.K. Agarwal. Dr. Saab, welcome once again to the platform, and it is over to you to enlighten our masses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Asha ji. First of all, Asha ji is a guru, principal, and we are always a student. तो सबसे पहले आशा जी के चरण स्पर्श एज ए स्टूडेंट उन्होंने थोड़ी देर के लिए एक गुरु बनने का मौका दिया ताकि मैं आप सब लोगों को अवगत करा सकूं whatever she has said as a subject. So thank you everybody, all teachers, parents who may be watching this on Facebook or on the YouTube. We expect this program will be seen by at least 10,000 people by the next 48 hours. So we have two things. The subject given to me is you don't have to be positive to think positive. In relation to HIV AIDS, at a time when COVID-19 is going on. So at a time when COVID-19 is going on, hit the iron when it is hot. Everybody wants to know COVID-19. So I have to pass on the messages in such a way, they are messages for both HIV as well as for COVID-19. Both of them were declared pandemics. One got controlled, one is still getting controlled. Both of them are new viruses. both of them have a different modus operandi. The modus operandi is different, but both of them were new viruses. If we have learned to live with HIV, we will also learn to live with corona. Nothing is constant. Everything is ever changing. So I'm going to go into very basics, and over a period of time, I will link to HIV, and then I will link to COVID-19 virus. And the theme given for today is very apt. You don't have to be positive to think positive. Means what? Whichever religion you believe, whichever sections of the society you have, there are two paths to success. The path of action, which is called karma, and the path of gyan, which is knowledge. Either you will learn by practical experience. By doing practical, you learn the theory. Some people learn the theory first and then they do by the practical. We will take up both the path separately. When you say you don't have to be positive, means you don't have to think positive. Means you follow the path of karma. And the second path is the path of gyan. Path of karma is described in every religion. I'll give you only an example of Ved, of whom I am a Vedic student. Learning has two types of learning. One is original work, original experience and work, called Shruti, and which you learn by experience, and that is called as, when you learn by experience and you share your experience, it is called Smriti. According to Vedic language, there are 4 ways of learning. This is pen. You learn it in the class 1. P for pen, P for pen, P for pen. You don't know anything else except for P for pen. The second thing you start learning is isse likhte hain. They will start teaching you the pen is used for writing. And in the third phase of learning, you start how to write. You find out, you practice how to write. That is called practicing. And in fourth learning phase, you start finding out, oh my God, ye ink kaise kaam karti hai? What is the mechanism of writing? Can I build up a pen in my lab? Can I change the ink myself? What will happen if I do this? What will happen if I do this? So these are the 4 phases of learning, whether it is Corona, COVID, HIV. There cannot be any other way of learning except for these 3. The first one is called mantra. The second one is called Brahmins. The third one is called Aranyaka. And the fourth one are called Upanishad in Vedic sciences. You can call them, first one is called knowledge. Second one is called what to do. Third one is how to practice. And fourth one is why. So that what and why you can understand without going into a religious text. The first 2 are called actions without knowing why. And the last 2 are called as knowledge. So the first 2 learning is called as an action. Action means क्या है, क्या करते हैं, कैसे करते हैं. That becomes upasana. So karma, action and upasana means practice is the first component of any knowledge. Karma means action, upasana means practice. अगर बिना सोचे समझे आपके घर में आपके घर में एक किचन को खाना बनाने के लिए एक औरत आती है, उसे कुछ नहीं पता, लेकिन वो आपसे अच्छी रोटी बना के खिलाएगी बिकॉज शी नोज, शी हैज प्रैक्टिस व्हाट टू डू. ओवर ए पीरियड ऑफ टाइम शी विल टेल यू, नमक इससे इतना ज्यादा डालोगे तो ये खराब हो जाएगा, मिर्च ज्यादा डालोगे तो ये खराब हो जाएगा. शी हैज प्रैक्टिस सो मच, शी डजंट नो नमक क्या काम करता है, मिर्च क्या काम करता है. शी हैज नो नॉलेज, but she has perfected herself in a karma. And the third is Aranyakas and Upanishads, where you practice learning and de-learning. Suno, samjho, jano, karo. So the action involves action and practice, and knowledge involves learning and de-learning. Learning is theoretical learning, de-learning is the practicals. When you start doing workshops and practicals, that becomes the de-learning part of it. So when you learn and de-learn. Remember, when you learn and de-learn, that is knowledge. So if somebody asks you what is knowledge, you say I learn, and then de-learn. De-learning is the practical experience of learning, and learning is doing and practicing. So remember, doing and practicing. So I will pick up this subject. You don't have to be positive to think positive. So I can think positive by following these two principles. The first principle is the principle of karma. The principle of karma is doing and listening. Doing and listening without understanding it. So what should I do? So I should go to the Google and start listening the videos on HIV AIDS. Then second video, third video, fourth video. Suppose there are 50 videos about prevention. So I start watching them. Nobody has taught me, nobody has guided me. So when I'm watching first, second, third, repeated, and suddenly an insight comes from me, oh my God, I got the message. So repeated actions gives you learning. That is the path of karma. And that is called satsang. Medical satsang, HIV satsang, corona satsang. You says, by repeatedly watching my movies, I have understood what the facts are. This is called repeatedness. This is called upasana. So by learning, you can watch about corona and COVID repeatedly. If you repeatedly watch, you will get the message. You repeatedly read, you will get the message. You repeatedly speak, you will get the message. So these are the path of karmas. Without being positive, you are being dictated. Somebody says, मेरे को कुछ नहीं करना. अच्छा इसको सुन ले, दोबारा सुन ले, तिबारा सुन ले, 4 बार सुन ले. So automatically he will become positive. Automatically he will learn. So the first way of learning for children is called the path of karma. And the path of karma involves repeated, that is called satsang. That is called satsang. Sang means together. Satya means we are trying to learn the fact about of that particular disease. Suppose you read or listen to 10 videos, you will find 3 messages which are constant in every video. And everybody talks about that, that becomes Satya. You have learned that. You will only remember those 3 things which every video talks about it. And that becomes your Gyan or knowledge. So slowly, you have learned yourself the 3 messages which are common to all the pathways. That is called the path of karma and the path of working. 90% people in the country, our mother, our grandmother, our grandnanny, they all are experienced. They may not be educated because they have learned with experience. So learning with experience is the path of karma. The path of karma, this is what you have done. To learn with experience, there is a phenomena. If you want to learn with experience or with action without understanding its meaning, the principle comes is called as absorption. While doing work, if you absorb into the work, that means you observe everything minutely. Suppose you are watching somebody, suppose I ask you to watch your mother making a paratha for 7 days. You are just observing. And if you are observing minutely, in 7 days you will come to know कितनी मिर्च डालनी है, कितना नमक डालना है, कितना तेल डालना है, आंच कितनी गर्म होनी चाहिए. This is called learning by practice. This is called learning by practice over a period of time. The second phase is called ज्ञान मार्ग. पहले सुनो, पहले समझो. जब आप समझोगे, सबसे पहले, suppose you have learned everything on theory. Suppose you learn everything on theory, then comes is, then you say, yes, I'm going to make paratha today. Okay, or I'm going to take a class on corona today. You say, I've learned everything. I'm going to take the first class of corona. So the first reaction is euphoria. Eureka, I've learned everything. I'm going to teach. So this is called the path of Gyan. The path of Gyan involves is, I know everything. But when you start doing it, you go into severe depression. अरे मेरे को तो ये भी याद नहीं आ रहा, मैं तो उसको correlate ही नहीं कर पा रहा. And then somebody starts asking questions, you get confused. Oh my God, I read this here, this here, this here. Now which one is correct? I don't know, because you have not done karma. So when after learning you start doing your actions, then you start learning. That is called de-learning. Unless you de-learn, you will not learn. So after understanding, you practice, or you practice and then learn. These are the two wings of knowledge. Two wings of knowledge. If you don't have to be positive, to think positive means you follow the path of karma, practice, then the knowledge automatically will come. Because then you will start asking people, ye kyun hota hai? Now you know the fact. You only have to know the reason. You have practiced yourself. So therefore, there are two pathways of learning: the path of karma and the path of Gyan. Let's think examples now with COVID and HIV together. Both of them are a RNA. Both of them are a RNA. But both of them requires a different virus. Both of them have a different modus operandi. The modus operandi is, in one, the virus enters the body through the respiratory passage called mucous membrane of the eyes, nose, and the throat. In another, also you require a mucous membrane, but there has to be exchange of two internal secretions. That means unless there is an exchange of close exchange of two internal secretions, HIV cannot come. So HIV virus cannot come and enter your sexual parts or mouth without being introduced. So HIV has to be introduced. The virus can be introduced by speaking, but you cannot introduce HIV virus by speaking. Okay, so in an HIV virus, you require exchange of two fluids, internal fluid with the internal fluid. That means either you require a blood mixing, or you require a marital relationship mixing, then only HIV can come, but coronavirus can come from a distance. This is called knowledge. This is called knowledge. This is called knowledge. Over a period of time you will experience. So to understand HIV, we need to have a pathway of knowledge first. You can't say कि मेरे को होने दो. But to understand, to prevent corona, यू हैव टू जस्ट फॉलो, 3 फीट दूर रहना है, हाथ धोने हैं और मेरे को मास्क पहनना है। क्यों पहनना है भूल जाओ यार। सो द पाथ ऑफ कर्मा इज द पाथ फॉर प्रिवेंशन ऑफ कोरोना। ब्लाइंडली मास्क पहनना है। क्यों पहनना है मत पूछो, बाद में बताएंगे। 3 फुट दूर रहो, फिनिश। क्यों रहो बाद में बताएंगे। सो ऑल पीपल इन द कंट्री टुडे नो ये 3 चीजें करनी है। उनसे पूछो क्यों करना है, आधों को नहीं पता, कोई बात नहीं, नहीं पता कोई बात नहीं। बट because by wearing these 3 things nobody is taking away your pleasure. So therefore the path of karma is the path of, so if you just follow this over a period of time you will start thinking positive, हाँ ये जरूरी है। So you path. Another thing which comes is the difference between HIV and corona. Corona is acute manageable disease. Corona is acute, means 3 months. HIV is chronic, lifelong. Corona is not a lifelong disease. So you have understood HIV as a lifelong disease, and Corona is an acute disease. It lasts for 3 months. Both of them requires protection. Both of them requires a protection. Both of them requires masking. एक का नाम है फेशियल मास्क, दूसरे का नाम है कंडोम. But both requires a masking for prevention. One is an internal mask, one is an external mask. One is a mask which you use it on the mouth to cover your nose, and there is a mask which is a sexual barrier mask for prevention. So both of them requires a protective mask. Both of them requires hygiene. One requires a sexual hygiene and the other one requires a respiratory hygiene. But both requires a hygiene, a sexual hygiene and blood transfusion hygiene will come in the hospitals. So both of them requires a hygiene, a respiratory hygiene or a sexual hygiene. Now corona is manageable. Today it is a manageable disease. We know the treatment, we know how to reduce the mortality, we know how to treat. So आज की डेट में हमारे को पूरा मालूम है कोरोना के बारे में. HIV today is practically curable. So it is, so there is a, so over a period of time HIV today has become practically curable. Corona also will have the same phase. It will be curable after some time. HIV also has taken. So when I say curable means that the virus is undetectable in the blood. So there is a difference between undetectable. Undetectable means from today's point of view, the virus can become undetectable. So the treatment is available. On treatment, the virus can be undetectable. And the virus can also become untransmissible. See, there are two things: undetectable, untransmissible. So HIV disease today, we have reached a situation where with the effective treatment, the virus can be undetectable. Undetectable does not mean है नहीं. Undetectable means आज की डेट में हमारे पास जो टेक्नोलॉजी है उसके हिसाब से वायरस नहीं दिख रहा. And untransmissible, the virus may be there but it cannot transmit to others. Imagine husband and wife, एक पॉजिटिव है एक नेगेटिव है और हस्बैंड को आपने अनट्रांसमिसेबल कर दिया तो आपने एक रिलेशनशिप बचा ली ना हस्बैंड वाइफ की. उनको आपने फिर से मिला दिया, because the virus is now untransmissible. So in HIV, now here comes the knowledge. So therefore in HIV you require knowledge first. In corona you require a action first. In HIV, knowledge is everything dependent on the knowledge. So HIV virus can be untransmissible. Good news in corona is coronavirus is untransmissible from day 9. 9 दिन के बाद में आपके शरीर में जितना भर्जी वायरस पड़ा हो वो अनट्रांसमिसेबल है. So corona is untransmissible on day 9. And over a period of time, it is possible to have HIV virus untransmissible over a period of time. So somebody says, what is HIV? We say it is a disease of mucous membrane caused by mixing of secretions from external to internal. Predominant pathway is a sexual, where sexual hygiene is not maintained. It's a other than that, you can have it from mother to baby or from blood to blood or needle. These are artificial, these are external ways, which I will come to later on. But the natural ways are a contact, the sexual contact between a male and a female, or a male and a male, or a female and a female, where sexual hygiene is not maintained. It is, once you get the virus, it is chronic, lifelong, manageable, and you can make the virus undetectable and untransmissible on treatment. Treatment बंद कर दोगे, फिर वो transmissible हो जाएगा और detectable हो जाएगा. So it is possible to live a normal life with HIV as on today. If that's so, HIV is no more a stigma. COVID can never be a stigma. So प्यारे बच्चों, never say to a boy, COVID girl, COVID teacher, कि मेरी टीचर को तो COVID हुआ है, so what? Never say he is COVID Kumar, he is COVID Rita, he is COVID Minakshi. No. The word COVID cannot be, because it's a disease which can come to anybody, and I don't call it as a disease, because after 9 days you are non-transmissible. After 9, in children, you may be non-transmissible on day 3 or 4. In
Dr.
children,
you allow me to intervene, since the most of the audience is the school going audience in this forum, sir. So I would request you to throw certain limelight on earlier sex used to be a taboo and sex education used to be a taboo. But in most of the private schools and public schools, sex is no more a taboo, and it's being discussed openly amongst the generation of students. So at the same time, we also teach them, because these children, they start very early and they have a knowledge of sex, through various social media platforms. So what would be your suggestion, since you have given a statement that AIDS is curable, and after some time, after the treatment, the virus is undetectable? So what is your message, and what are the precautions this generation, which becomes sexually active at the age of 15, 16, on an occasion like this, what is your suggestion to the generation of class 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 students?
Yes, absolutely. I'm coming to that, because I have to build up some basic facts that on treatment, HIV can be undetectable and HIV can be non-transmissible. But remember, the most important thing is sexual hygiene. That does not mean that हो गया तो कोई बात नहीं, आगे जाके undetectable हो जाएगा. This undetectable and untransmissible is not in every case. It may, I never said shall, it may become undetectable. So the most important thing is called sexual hygiene and safe sex. Sexual hygiene and safe sex is the most important thing in children. This corona has taught us two things. He has defined the age. less than 12 years and more than 12 years. Up till now, all the children are in dilemma when I am becoming an adult. Because from adolescent age 12 to 18, they says, na main bachcha hu, na main bada hu. But this corona has taught us that less than 12 years of age, your immunity is strong and you can prevent any disease, including corona. But after 12 years, you behave like an adult. Therefore, I personally feel that Madam Asha is correct, that sex education has to start at age 12 onwards, because for practical purposes, the person is adult and requires a knowledge like adults. The first thing we need to learn is sexual hygiene and body discipline. Sexual hygiene and body discipline we need to learn. Here we also need to learn is sexual encounters. Now, sexual encounters means these are called as accidental sexual encounters, where you say that galti ho gayi ma'am, or I couldn't control myself. These are called as sexual unprotected encounters. Like you have emergency contraception, you immediately go to a doctor, and within 72 hours you take a pill that by mistake, if I become pregnant, I can go to my doctor and take an emergency pill. Same thing is now available in HIV, that is called as post-exposure prophylaxis. Post-exposure prophylaxis means आप बाजार में जा रहे हैं, किसी आदमी ने आपको लूटने की कोशिश करी और उसने एक नीडल लेकर आया और उसको बोला आपको कि मैं नीडल आपको लगा दूंगा, ये पॉजिटिव नीडल है. उसी तरीके से नाउ यू कम बैक टू ए डॉक्टर कि मेरे को पता नहीं अंदर ब्लड चढ़ा दिया है. Similarly, you come back with a sexual encounter and now you don't know. In a sexual encounter, you don't know. We also use it in sexual abuse. In such cases, now there is a term called post-exposure prophylaxis. Within 72 hours earlier, the better. Within 72 hours earlier, the better. If you go to a doctor, the doctor can give you some medicines which are oral, effective, and that can work for a post-exposure prophylaxis. So young population must know that there is a terminology called post-exposure prophylaxis. You need to take one medicine for 3 weeks, and doctors can guide you for that particular thing. So one thing is very, 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 very common that everybody should know is that if there is a mistake and if there is an accident, post-exposure prophylaxis is available. The second thing which people wants to know is what is sexual hygiene and sexual barriers. People wants to know about sexual hygiene and sexual barriers. The sexual barrier involves a male organ mask, which is called as a condom, which is a male organ mask, which is called correct, consistent use of the male organ mask, which is called as a condom. When we talk about the correct, means it has to be of a proper technique, consistent, non-reusable. That's what the sexual hygiene involves. So sexual hygiene basically involves is a barrier, and that barrier is a male organ mask. All of us know them and call them as condom. But still, if you go back to our literature, we says the Ministry of Health says A, B, C of HIV prevention. A for abstinence as much as possible. A for abstinence as much as possible. B for that if you cannot prevent abstinence, be faithful to your partner. You are committed to he or she. If you have decided to get married, and if you are faithful to your partner, that is B. C, if you cannot be faithful to your partner, then C for correct and consistent use of male organ barrier called condom. These are the three basic things which have been all over, whether you talk about ministry website, WHO websites, everywhere they talk about these three things. A for abstinence, B for be faithful to your partner till you get married, and C for which comes as using of condoms. Now today everybody talks about live-in relationships without marriage. Fine. If you are in a live-in relationship which has been approved by the courts, everybody has approved a live-in relationships. There also the principles will remain the same, A, B, and C. Now, when you are in a live-in relationship, you have to remember certain things. Last couple of days, Supreme Court, High Court have given a lots of decision that you have a right to choose your partner. So that decision now every time you are reading, you have a right to choose your partner, where live-in relationships will also come. Medically, it is very important the knowledge to prevent STI. STI are called as sexually transmissible illnesses. HIV is not the only one. There are many diseases which can be transmitted through sexually transmitted illnesses, which can be skin diseases, which can be gonorrhea, which can be syphilis. So HIV is not the only one. Therefore, sexual intimacy requires sexual hygiene and knowledge. You cannot say, I will learn it by practice. No. Another thing people say is that if I have an accidental encounter, does it mean that I'm going to get HIV? May not be. May not be. The incidence may be low, but who is going to get it? You don't know. Now, I get this call at least once in a week. Children, 18, 19, 20, 21 years of age, that I ended up into an unprotected encounter. What should I do? These are the common things they will come back. My answer to them is have faith in your doctor and reach out to them within the first day. Don't think for shy first day, second day, third day. Reach out to them on the first day and then take a call. Do you need a post-exposure prophylaxis or not? These drugs are safe. That does not mean we follow the African way. In Africa, the HIV is so much, sexual exploitation is so much. Then they are talking about is let me take a drug every day and forget about the precaution. No, absolutely no. Pre-exposure prophylaxis is to be used rarely on medical supervision to some sections of the society under a medical supervision. But post-exposure prophylaxis is yet. Post-exposure prophylaxis is yes. That too only if you have done a mistake. That does not mean that you will go on making the mistakes. So the lessons are sexual hygiene is very, very, very important. As you have emergency contraception, similarly, you have an emergency post-exposure prophylaxis, emergency post-exposure prophylaxis. Some people say that I have done an unprotected encounter. I have washed my local areas with soap and water. No, I'm not going to get HIV. The answer is no. Once the virus has entered inside, if it has entered the cell, it is not reversible. It is going to stay. So these are some of the things. Another thing which people ask is, can kissing cause HIV infection? Theoretically, yes. Can saliva spread HIV infection? Theoretically, yes. Theoretically, yes. But it is very, very, very rare and uncommon. Then people says, can male to male sex causes HIV? Unprotected, yes. Unprotected male to male sex is also responsible for HIV. So the word comes here is protected and unprotected. I have 15 minutes to answer your question answers. I'll ask Asha ji to have direct question answers from the people.
Miss Vidya Oberoi, please ask questions from students.
Greetings for the day, ma'am and sir. I think it was a wonderful session, and I would like to say again, as ma'am said, that theme for World AIDS Day is ending HIV/AIDS epidemic, resilience and impact. And sir rightly said that AIDS 2020 is a call for action to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing global health landscape. COVID-19 has created that spread of coronavirus pandemic that has really taught us to take preventive steps, to wear mask, to maintain social distancing, most importantly stay home, stay safe. And I agree with sir that awareness, prevention and help is going to help for HIV positive cases also. While I was looking at chat box, many children are asking, is HIV positive means we are suffering from AIDS?
No, let me come back. There are two terms. HIV, so corona positive does not mean COVID. So there are two terminologies, coronavirus and COVID. COVID is a disease. So AIDS is a disease. HIV means the virus is there in the body. If it is damaging the body, then becomes AIDS. AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So AIDS means now it is symptomatic. It is producing symptoms in the body. It may remain asymptomatic for years together. But in corona also we have corona positive, no disease. You say it's asymptomatic corona positive. So these two are, HIV is a virus and AIDS is a disease out of it.
So Dr. Saab, why are viruses so difficult to handle of all the microorganisms if children could know about it?
So a virus is, remember a virus is a non-living virus outside my body. All viruses are non-living outside my body. They require a body to replicate. Therefore, most viruses will be killed when they are not inside the cell. So therefore, HIV virus also will get killed if it is outside the surface. If it is not getting a surface, proper atmosphere is required. Now, viruses are peculiar. They will enter the cell and they will hijack the cell. Remember, they are hijackers. So every virus will hijack the cell and they will take over the photocopier machine of the cell. And they will start replicating their own protein and not the protein of the body. You call them as infected cell. So if अगर मेरे घर में 50 लोग काम करते हैं और उसमें कोई आदमी आके एक एक आदमी को अपना काम करवाना चालू कर दे, after some time my body will suffer. That's what HIV and corona does. So all viruses, they hijack the cell of the body, take over their photocopier machine, and then in that photocopier machine, they start producing their own virus photocopies. That is called as a viral disease. Most of the viral diseases are acute, will last for 7 days, but this virus of HIV can last lifelong. The reason being, it occupies certain cells of the body. So there are cells in the body called CD4 cells. These are called lymphocytes. These are called CD4 cells. Now, coronavirus does not take over CD4 cells, but this virus takes over the CD4 cells, and CD4 cells starts multiplying and making photocopies of this virus. Therefore, this virus remains in my body forever. Remember, all viruses do not survive on the surface. Bacteria do. The virus is never found on the soil, whether it is HIV or corona. They require some source, which can be a human body, which can be a plant leaf, which can be an animal to grow, to survive.
Another nice question that I read is that will it spread by sitting next to an HIV positive person or by mosquito bite?
So very
How
good question.
else?
So therefore, remember, it requires a mixing of internal secretion with an internal secretion. It cannot, so therefore, if you touch the urine of a person, you cannot get it, because urine of a person is an external secretion. आपने किसी को हाथ लगाया और उसके हाथ में पसीना आ रहा था, आपका उसका पसीना आपके हाथ में आ गया, you cannot get it. It is an external secretion. So there has to be a mixing of internal secretion with an internal secretion. Male sexual secretions are internal secretions. Female sexual secretions are internal secretions. So there has to be a mixing of internal secretions with internal secretions. That's what so therefore, if you are sitting with somebody, you cannot get it. Sharing the food, you cannot get it. उसके पसीने से आपको नहीं हो सकता, उसके यूरिन से आपको नहीं हो सकता, उसके स्टूल से आपको नहीं हो सकता, उसको हक करने से आपको नहीं हो सकता, उससे हाथ मिलाने से आपको नहीं हो सकता. क्यों? क्योंकि उसके एक्सटर्नल सिक्रीशंस का आपके एक्सटर्नल सिक्रीशन से मिलाप हो रहा है, उससे नहीं हो सकता. So the transmissions are sexual route, blood transfusion means unsafe blood transfusion, unsafe sexual contact, mother to child transmission, or giving an injection as a micro blood transfusion. When you are using needle sharing, needle के अंदर में माइक्रो ब्लड ट्रांसफ्यूजन हो जाता है, क्योंकि नीडल का जो ब्लड है वो आपके अंदर में चला गया. So these are the 4 pathways for infection of HIV.
Shambhavi, I wanted to ask that how will we get to know that HIV virus has entered our body? Like
So
it is present in our body.
first of all, after a sexual encounter or a blood transfusion, in the initial week, the virus may cause viremia. So you may have lethargy or a fever. Most of the people ignore it. But somebody who is conscious and he says, on this Sunday, I slept with a girl which is unprotected, and I don't know whether she is faithful to me or not. Then in the next week, you may have some degree of one-day fever. Halka sa fever, body toot rahi hai. That may be a sign of viremia. But viremia we are not checking, we are checking the antibodies. Therefore, in such a situation, antibodies may be positive on day 7 or day 14. तो डे 7 और डे 14 में आपको पता लगता है, आपको टेस्ट करने से कि आपको HIV पॉजिटिव है कि नहीं है. But I, as a message, this is what the message given to the medical profession by the ministry is: any unprotected sexual encounter should be reported to a doctor. Do I need a post-exposure prophylaxis. If you are going to wait for the HIV to become positive, now you require a lifelong treatment.
So last question that I read is there any vaccine available for HIV?
This was because HIV could never give a vaccine, people were skeptical कि कोरोना का भी वैक्सीन नहीं आएगा. Now corona also is a RNA virus. कोरोना के अंदर में भी CD4 cells involve होती हैं, which are lymphocyte cells. HIV में भी कम होती हैं, यहाँ पर भी कम होती हैं, और शुरू में आया कि HIV की दवाइयाँ कोरोना को भी खत्म कर रही हैं, तो शुरू में ये आया था कि कभी कोरोना का वैक्सीन नहीं बन पाएगा, बट बाद में पता लगा कि दोनों का मोडस ऑपरेंडी डिफरेंट है. एक ढीठ वैक्सीन है और एक फ्लेक्सिबल वैक्सीन है. HIV एक ढीठ वैक्सीन है, उसका वैक्सीन आज तक नहीं बन पाया है. द रीजन बीइंग, वैक्सीन क्यों नहीं बन पाया है? क्योंकि इसका वायरस ऐसी जगह पे छुपा हुआ है जहाँ पे वैक्सीन काम नहीं करता. सो इट ऑल वैक्सीन डिपेंड्स अपॉन कि आपने वैक्सीन के बाद में आपकी एंटीबॉडीज जाके ऐसी जगह, क्योंकि ये जिस जगह में छुप गया है जाके HIV का, वो वैक्सीन बनने नहीं दे रहा.
So please allow me to ask one personal question of my own.
You have still have
Yesterday
8 minutes. We have still 8 minutes. We can still have 8 minutes. Yes.
So yesterday on a Google Scholar research paper I was reading, it says that the vaccine that is coming for COVID, since it is dealing with RNA virus, it is going to cause genetic mutations in us, and it will forever hinder our ways of body fighting infections on its own. So how much truth?
The answer is no, because there is no RNA vaccine coming in the world. Remember, we are not using virus RNA. All these vaccines are synthetic RNA. So Moderna and Pfizer vaccine is a synthetic RNA. That means they are making the RNA sequence in the lab. It is not a natural RNA vaccine. So therefore, at this moment, nothing to worry.
Thank you so much, sir, for this beautiful session to create awareness about this pandemic befitting global solidarity and shared responsibility. With your permission, I invite Kshitij Sharma of class 9 to propose vote of thanks. Kshitij.
But one thing before Kshitij comes and says, Vidhi, I would just like to thank Dr. Agarwal that it is bad enough that people are dying of AIDS, but nobody would die of ignorance. Sir, your lecture was enlightening, and I'm glad my children have learned out of this lecture, and they are no more ignorant about the disease. They are no more ignorant about the lifestyle they need to adopt in future. And with this, Vidhi, if Kshitij is there, over to him for proposing the vote of thanks.
Kshitij, please unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
Before Kshitij speaks, I have to put a disclaimer, because we are live on YouTube and we are also live on Facebook. There is a disclaimer to be read out that during this seminar, we have not discussed anything which is unscientific, anything which violates the WHO, Ministry of Health, Indian Medical Association, or Confederation of Medical Association of Asia and Oceania, or Heartcare Foundation of India guidelines. So whatever we have discussed is science based on the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Kshitij, I take over, please.
Good afternoon and greetings from Bal Bharti, Noida. What a wonderful session. I, Kshitij Sharma of class 9, on behalf of Bal Bharti Public School, Noida, extend my sincere thanks to Padma Shri awardee Dr. K.K. Agarwal, President HCFI and CMAAO, who has spared his valuable time from his busy schedule to enlighten us and explain the nuances of being and thinking positive. So your lucid talks, so full of simplicity, yet full of insights, have enlightened our minds and given us deep insights into the topic. I'm grateful to our principal ma'am, Srimati Asha Prabhakar ma'am, for always being the catalyst of change and encouraging us to organize today's webinar. With a deep sense of appreciation, I thank all my loving teachers and my fellow students for challenging our limits and opening new avenues. Thank you once again.
So the only thing I have to request is everybody who is watching this program, your school function, this knowledge from your school can go a long way to thousands and lakhs of people. After watching this program, even if one mistake can be corrected of an unprotected sex where he knows, yes, he has to approach a doctor within 72 hours. And this can only happen if you share this video of your school to the parents on your social media, on our WhatsApps. The link can be sent to everybody so that people understand that HIV is not a stigma. HIV is an encounter. So what? If you get it, so what? If you can prevent it, why not? And if you get it, so what? That is the message I wanted to give. Thank you. This was our 35th episode for schools. And Madam wanted to know this is 1125 session of mine ever since Corona started. Thank you.
Thank you. And we assure you, we are a socially responsible school, socially responsible parents, and socially responsible teachers. And on this note, the link will be forwarded on our website, on our social media platforms, and of course to all our parents. Thank you, Dr. Saab, and have a very nice day.